And we go straight to business. Stephen is here. Starting back in the US, as we just mentioned, retailers gearing up for that spending spree after Thanksgiving, aren't they, Stephen?
Yeah, the deals have been advertised for weeks, but tomorrow is officially Black Friday and consumers in the United States and elsewhere will be bagging bargains from later today. It's a welcome boost for many struggling retailers, but it looks like that e-commerce will be this year's big winners, with predictions that Cyber Monday could be the biggest online shopping day in history. Solange Moujon has more.
It's a spending frenzy that has become synonymous with the Thanksgiving holiday. 69% of Americans, or some 164 million people, say they plan to scour for deals right after the national holiday, on Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and Cyber Monday. A long weekend of sales that kicks off the holiday shopping season and brings in over $1 trillion in the U.S. And the tradition has spread abroad, with, for example, over 50% of French buyers planning to partake. But how people shop on Black Friday and in general is changing. With an increasing number of deals found online, that market has grown in the U.S. by nearly 14% in the past year. And it could hit the $100 billion in sales this season. But at the same time, online retailers such as Amazon have begun opening physical stores to lure in customers, as there have been warnings that their growth is plateauing.
Yes, there will be continued growth in online sales, but as I mentioned earlier, that sales growth rate is declining now in terms of its annual growth rates, down towards single digits year on year. So that's beginning to reach the maturity point of the curve.
But not all stores or consumers are buying into the shop till you drop frenzy. Several big retailers such as IKEA, Home Depot, and the outdoor clothing company REI have opted out. A counterculture move or a business calculation that analysts say won't likely hurt what's expected to be a record-breaking shopping season.
Well, let's check in on what's happening on the markets for you. At the open here in Europe, interestingly, retailers' shares not seeing any gains as that spending splurge gets underway. The sector overall is weaker. London's FTSE 100, the Paris CAC 40 and the Frankfurt DAX all opening the day in the red today. Over in Asia, Japanese markets were closed for Labour Thanksgiving Day. The US markets, of course, will be closed later today. Shanghai, we saw a sharp drop on that market later in the trading day there, down over 2%, in fact, as investors take profits, and that's having a knock-on effect in Hong Kong as well.
Going to talk about Britain now. Business groups pretty unimpressed by this latest budget that was announced yesterday afternoon.
That's right. Economic forecasts that accompanied the Finance Minister's speech were uninspiring. Britain's Office of Budget Responsibility predicts that growth for the UK this year will just be 1.5%. That's down from the 2% that it expected earlier this year. Growth is forecast to slow further until 2019. Now, the OBR says the bleaker outlook is down to lower productivity, which has been hurt by the weaker value of sterling. Finance Minister Philip Hammond announced he was setting aside more than €3 billion for Brexit preparations and unveiled a €50 billion investment plan to include a boost for housing. For Britain's Institute of Directors, though, the budget didn't go far enough.
This was a very important budget to make some big announcements, to be very bold, because this is effectively the last budget before Brexit Day in March 2019. The next one next year is going to be too late to increase business confidence, to encourage them to go out, invest, employ people, and there wasn't enough in there for business to actually go out there and make that difference to increase the confidence.
Stay in the UK. A new campaign to retain legal services in London after Brexit.
The City of London lobby group says more needs to be done to protect the UK's legal sector. English law is used to govern many international contracts, but there are fears that its leading position could be threatened after Brexit. Pressure group The City UK wants the British government to lobby for UK qualified lawyers to be granted mutual market access to the EU. Meanwhile, the Irish Law Society has already seen a rush of UK lawyers seeking to register in Ireland since the Brexit referendum. More than 300,000 people work in the legal sector in Britain, so it could be a major effect on their business.
And lastly, but not least from Stephen, the Trump name is to be removed from a hotel in Manhattan.
The Trump Organization is ending its association with one of its prized properties, the Trump Soho Hotel. In 10 years under the Trump name, the 46-storey building has been a focus for some controversy, including partisan protests after Donald Trump announced his candidacy for the presidency. Now, the hotel's restaurant closed back in April, and according to the New York Times, a lawyer for the business said that it had seen a decline in custom since the election. The hotel will now be rebranded by its owners, CIM. It's actually the second time this year that a hotel has dropped the Trump name after a similar decision was taken on a Toronto building in June.
Barack Hotel? New name?
Possibly, if he decides to put up the money, yeah.
Who knows? Thank you very much, Stephen. Stephen with Business on France 24.